All right, it's good to see everyone here this evening. If you open your Bibles to Ezekiel, the 13th chapter, we noticed in verse 4, a point that I was going to make, and I'll make it first, and we'll continue with our questions. Question number 6 on page 2 of Ezekiel 4. It says, O Israel, thy prophets have been like foxes in the waste places. Some translation will have jackals. A jackal was kind of a fox-like creature, but it's smaller than a wolf, but it was one that was used from Africa, Asia Minor, and Africa were places in which the jackal would be found. And what would happen is that a jackal would kill a lion but not eat it, would provide the lion for food, and it would eat what's left. Your prophets are like foxes or jackals. It's the Hebrew word that could be either one. Notice in Psalm 63 and verse 10, where the sword will come upon Israel, and you'll see who's taking over the rest of the carnage. He says, "My God, with His loving kindness." I'm sorry. Psalm 63. Pages sticking together today. They shall be given over to the power of the sword. They shall be a portion for the foxes or jackals. That's the sword, dead bodies. There will be the leftovers. And it's that. So how were the prophets like that? They were to the people like that. They're very deceptive. They're going to devour you, and it's not because they care about you. They're going to take over the leftovers and take over the remains that are there. They weren't there to save you. Your prophets, and we're in this 13th chapter where the prophets are speaking from their own heart, not the heart of God. And God is going to punish them. They have lying visions, and they speak things that are not true. And God's going to destroy them. So it's that he throws that in there in verse 4. Your prophets are like that, and I don't want to pass over that because we're looking at this next question. Daubing a wall with untempered mortar. That's what they are too. So what would a wall like that be with untempered mortar? Strong wall or weak? Be very weak. It's going to fall apart. We got some bricks out there without any mortar in it right now, and they got little gaps in there. It's not a strong force that was there. Look what, if you wanted to destroy the feelings of the people when Nehemiah came back to build the wall. Look at Nehemiah, the 4th chapter, in verse 3. Look what they said to discourage the workers. Now Tobiah the Ammonite was by them, and he said, Even which thou art building, if a fox go up, if a jackal goes up, in order to bury into the wall, if he would go up, he shall what? He shall break down their stone wall. Even if he just goes up, little paws up there, it's going to fall over. And then they're in there to take over the leftovers. Your prophets are like foxes, jackals that don't care about the people. You will allow the carnage to happen, you'll get the leftovers. You're like an untempered mortar upon a wall. You're speaking lies that doesn't give you strength. What does it tell you about the strength of God's people? Like the strength of our church. If we don't face the truth, if we don't tell the truth, if we just give wonderful things, well, it's just peace. Let's just think about that. And not that we should be discouraged all the time with bad news, but the point is that we need to face the truth, and when we have the truth, we can turn back to God if we need to. God's appealing to them all through here, through the prophet, to return back. Leave your idols that have captivated your heart. Come back to God, and don't listen to these false prophets of what they are doing, because they're destroying you. And it's on temper wall. You're like foxes, eat over the carnage, and you don't care about the people at all to save them, and you save them with the truth. Now, a prophet was God's spokesman. And when God speaks, the prophet speaks the very words of God. And that's the way God communicated his will to the people through these prophets. But here we begin to see what's happening with the idea of you're not building a strong wall. You're not building a good defense. You will indeed be destroyed. So the false prophets were like plaster daubing with untempered mortar. They got the mortar up there. Peace, peace, safety. It's all going to be strong, and it's going to break down. And even when Nehemiah starts rebuilding the walls a little bit later, Foxes could knock that one down, and it doesn't, because God's people were going to do what God wanted them to do, and that wall would be built. Explain how the women diviners, so they're soothsayers, and he speaks about the women, about what we're saying. Verse 10, get back to the point of lying, says, because even they have seduced my people, saying peace when there is no peace, and when buildeth up a wall, behold, they daub it with untempered mortar. It's not going to withstand that. So we drop down into the chapter, untempered mortar, verse 15. Everybody got that point? Or let's beginning with verse 17. Now, son of man, set thy face against thy daughters of the people that prophesy out of their own heart, and prophesy thou against them. And say, thus saith the Lord Jehovah, woe to the women that sew pillows. I'm reading from the American Standard. It might take the wrist, it might take the elbow, it might cover the hand. There are holes for the hand. The Hebrew word denotes just that. But it's translated, sew pillows upon all elbows, and make kerchiefs for the head of persons of every stature, to hunt souls. And I want to know that. So let's look at the idea of pillows and kerchief upon the women. And a lot of things were amulets. The idea they would place things upon them to ward off evil happening to them. And one that would cover the elbows, that'd be kind of have soft pillows. But the idea of having those around the elbows, that give that to the people, that would ward off the enemy. And that head covering, there would be head covering depending on how tall they were for each of the sizes that they had. They were very much involved in that, but they were promoting those things and saying these things will ward off the evil. They're diviners. They're people using magic and things of that sort, Babylonian background of things. They're doing that to God's people. It says, thy own daughters of thy people are doing that. And that's how they're prophesying. Nothing's going to happen to you, and these things are there to protect you. So how is that hunting souls? That's right. That's right. And promise them that they will have life. And we have a phrase in American Standard that let them fly. You'll have life. You will be there. What's God going to do that? Look at verse 20. I'm against your pillows wherewith ye there hunt the souls to make them fly. You give it your promise. To make them fly means promising them life, flying away. And I will tear them from your arms. And I will let the souls go, even the souls that ye hunt, to let them fly. Your kerchiefs also will I tear, and deliver my people out of your hand, and they shall be no more in your hand to be hunted. So the point is, you are taking them captive. They're just spoiled to you. You hunt like a jackal hunts for the meat. You're like there's a hunt for the souls of people with your false promises, with your false protection, and people apparently gave into that. But he's going to destroy that, because with lies ye have grieved the heart of the righteous, whom I have not made sad, and strengthened the hands of the wicked, that ye should not return from his wicked way, to be saved alive. To be saved alive. They're promising you that, but it's exactly the opposite. Therefore ye shall no more see false visions, nor divine divinations. I will deliver my people out of your hand, and ye shall know that I am Jehovah. Again, a constant refrain. He's going to take care of the false prophets. He's going to take care of the false seers, divination, the magic that's happening, appealing to man's wisdom, and even that which was around them in Babylonian captivity, in order to say everything's going to be okay. There is no peace. God's people are in the process. They've already been captured. One phase is Nebuchadnezzar already captured them, and he's going to do it again and destroy the city. But that's what we see with in the latter part of this chapter 13, those type of things that are taking place. Well, I don't know exactly. Some people say, well, the pillows, they'll lay their head and they'll just go to sleep and not listen to the truth. Okay, you believe that if you want to. It's kind of a soft landing, protection. Whose elbows are being covered? Is it going to be the false teachers, or is it the false seers, or is it going to be the people they give them to? Your elbows, I'm going to rip them off of you, and that which was to protect you, that's not going to protect you. And those who do divination are going to be destroyed, and I'll save my people. He's going to be saving a remnant all the way through these judgment scenes that we're seeing. So how they hunt souls, they're captive. They're taking them captive to their false lies, their lies, and God says it's totally opposite. That's who's going to be really saved. What does Colossians 2 say? The wisdom of men. We're made spoil by the love for philosophy, and instead of the truth of God, we are made spoil. We're just things that we're going to capture. We hunt for them. They belong to me and my lies. I'll destroy you, and that's fine with me. And that's what wisdom does. You're captured by that false teaching, and you go against the things of God. Any comments or things I'd like to add to that? Yes? They're persuaded, aren't they? And that continues to happen today. What we remedy is we always return back to what God has to say. All right, as we enter chapter 14, with those being destroyed and redeeming his people from such, in chapter 14, why were the elders coming to Ezekiel? There were certain elders of Israel unto me, and set before him. They came to him and set before me, he says. And it's interesting, God tells Ezekiel what they want before they get there. And he tells them what to tell them. And that's just interesting that, God knows our hearts, and we've got to go talk to Jeremiah. Why were they coming to Ezekiel? Why were they coming to Ezekiel? Inquire of the Lord through their prophet, right? Prophet speaks the mind of God, and he speaks the words of God, and you inquire for us unto God. We recognize you as a prophet. So inquire of us about us, and we're coming to really inquire of God. Just full of hypocrisy, isn't it? Where was their heart? How do you take an idol into your heart and lay a stumbling block before your eyes, which he speaks here about idolatry? You take the idol into your heart and set the stumbling block, which is the idol, another way of saying that, causes you to fall away, before your face. How do you do that? I thought the idol might be one big old idol and everybody bow down and worship that. Or could they be the private idols that they had that represented the gods or demons or whatever they've been persuaded to do through the false teaching? But he's taken it into their heart. How does one do that?
You're dividing God when you do that.
All right. Do I eat it? Or does it represent something where it truly has stolen my heart? It's in my heart. That's inside me. I look to that idol. Departing from God is part of that. I'm looking out. It's in my heart. Where God wants us to believe from within and a heart upon Him. It's a stumbling block before our face. Why is it before our face? We worship it. We don't worship God. We worship that. So God knows that. And how humiliating it would be for me. I'm going to go and inquire of this, and God has already told the one I'm inquiring about what I really am. I mean, how do you live with yourself? How could you say, well, you have any credibility to be an elder? You know, men of wisdom in this case, and of age. And it's the sure hypocrisy that's there. And that's how chapter 14 opens. Therefore speak unto them in verse 4, and say, thus saith the Lord. You want to know what the Lord wants to know about you? He already knows about you. Every man of the house of Israel that taketh his idols into his heart, and putteth the stumbling block of his iniquity before his face. That means he's sold to it from within. He puts his face toward it to worship it. It's all there. And he cometh to the prophet, Jehovah will answer him therein according to the multitude of his idols. That I may take the house of Israel, notice, I will take them in their own heart. I will take them, though they're relying upon false gods. I will take them according to what's going in their heart, in their own heart, because they are all estranged from me through their idols. Indeed, we are separated from that. So that's a very damaging thing to be told. But that's what the elders were coming for. And our next question: what did God reveal to Ezekiel concerning the elders? I just kind of gave that one away. Anybody want to add to that or define it better? That they want to inquire of Jehovah what we should do, how we should go. And just because they have the idols in their heart, God has disdain for them. But what does he say in verse 6? Therefore say unto the house of Israel, thus saith the Lord Jehovah. He said, return ye and turn yourselves from your idols. So what we see here is that he wants them to turn to him. Notice he emphasizes this. Return ye and turn. It's more of emphasis. You know, turning means return back to God. Turn back to God who wants to save you, and turn away your faces from all your abominations. For every one of the house of Israel, notice this, every one of the house of Israel are strangers that sojourn in Israel. That's interesting to me. Here are people just passing through, people who don't belong to Israel. They may have come in there, they're immigrants and so forth. If they start worshiping the idols, and house of Israel does that separateth himself from me, and taketh his idols into his heart, and putteth the stumbling block of his iniquity before his face, and cometh to the prophet to inquire for himself of me, I, Jehovah, will answer myself, which he does through the true prophets. I will set my face against that man, and make him an astonishment for a sign and a proverb. When you make someone an astonishment as a proverb, make it a sign as a proverb. And it's an astonishing thing. What is that? They'll just remember you for that one thing. And he'll kind of go on with a proverb that it sticks. Your name is mud. Where do we get that? Who got that one? Lincoln. It's time. And it sticks today. You ever said that to your wife or husband? Your name is mud. Well, wife say it to husband. Your name is mud. You're in trouble. That sort of thing. Husbands get in trouble sometime. You're finished. You're done. You're no more hope for you. Everybody's turning on you. They're all giving you up. And so it's an astonishing proverb that sticks, and because they have turned away from God, and therefore he will he's not going to receive them. Notice this. What about the prophet? So we know those people will be, the prophets will be done away with, and the people that want to inquire of God is going to be that way. But what about the prophet that speaks to them a lie? He says, and if the prophet be deceived and speak a word. So I'm speaking, thus saith Jehovah, and really Jehovah hasn't revealed anything to him. And he says, he shall speak where Jehovah hath deceived that prophet, and I will stretch out my hand upon him, and I will destroy him from the midst of my people. I was just ignorant. They came to talk to me about inquiring of you, O God. But when he speaks a word, if something like that happens, he speaks a word which maybe they would like to hear, God's going to destroy the prophet. And he says, I have put a lying spirit in them. He does that. And a lot of times it's because they want to go that way, the way of Balaam. And so forth. And to speak, when people already don't disregard God and they want a prophet, he'll give them one, deceive them, and in order to destroy them. And that's what he said he will do here. And they shall bear their iniquity, and the iniquity of the prophet shall, even as the iniquity of him that seeketh unto it. So it's not, poor guy, he didn't have a chance and you're unjust, God. No, that's where his heart is, and that's what he prophesied as if it came from me, and I will destroy him too. And that the house of Israel may go no more astray from me, neither defile themselves any more with their transgressions, but they be my people, and I will be their God, saith the Lord Jehovah. Again, he's cleaning house. He's taking care of what's so corrupt among his people. And the false teachers, women diviners that use their amulets in order to protect them from evil instead of hearing the word of God, and just unlocking and just showing what hypocrisy looks like. God sees it. He's disgusted with it. And he's going to bring the judgment upon them in order to remind them, I am Jehovah, you're my people. And he's just cleaning house. But it's all based upon hypocrisy and false teaching and the wisdom of men. All right? We're in the second part of this chapter. He mentions 3 men. And what's the purpose of mentioning these 3 men and 4 punishments? Let's get to who are the 3 men. Noah and Daniel and Job. Were they righteous people? They're righteous. And in their own time, Daniel would defile himself even when he was young. Job remained faithful, didn't sin against God. Noah obeyed everything that God told him to do in building the ark and so on. They were noted. Talk about just names brought out. He used them as example. Wouldn't it be nice if he could use you as example? He's still writing the Bible of men of character, men of devotion, men that indeed were going through difficult times and still withstood temptation to turn against God. But he uses them for a purpose. And it's in the context of 4 punishments that are taking place. Wild beast, it'll be the sword, it'll be famine, wild beast, it'll be the sword, it'll be pestilence. All of those things would be coming on Jerusalem when Nebuchadnezzar takes it. And he just saying, well, if I just sent the beast, or cause a famine to come upon you, through besieging a city for over 2 years, you would cause a famine to take place. There would be the idea of wild beast ravaging in and keep people from there. We've seen the idea of the jackals one sense, but he's using this idea of if they came in to destroy it and keep the people from living, he could send that. He'll send the sword with the armies and so forth. And the pestilence will be the sickness that comes from the judgment upon Jerusalem and what they would go through death in the streets and so forth. and not able to get out, not to get food in, and so forth. Those things would happen. So what's his point? He makes the point each time. He first of all starts, he doesn't mention the sons and the daughters with the famine. I will stretch out my hand, verse 13, and break the staff of the bread thereof, and send famine upon it, and cut it from it man and beast. And so this is when he introduces, though these three men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, were in it. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a congregation and Noah, Daniel, and Job were here? It'd be pretty good, wouldn't it? And had that kind of character, well, we can be that. We studied them, and we can be the same type of people. But if they were in your city, boy, I'm relying on them. What's his point now? What's the whole point of using them? David? They only save themselves. That's right. And that's it. Can you impute righteousness to another? No. You can be an influence. But we've seen this, and we'll see in the 18th chapter, where you cannot transfer that righteousness to another, nor can you send unrighteous to another. It doesn't mean that the influences won't be strong. But you can't do that. Each one stands on its own before God. And God's not duplicitous in doing that. Man is not equal when he thinks that indeed God will spare them or condemn us because of what our fathers did. We're responsible for our own righteousness. And that's what he does. But he goes through these details of each of these four judgments upon God's people that would happen with Jerusalem to make that point. Verse 14. But it said they were on their own souls by their righteousness, saith the Lord. They would deliver their own souls because of that. If I'll cause evil beasts to pass the land and ravage it and made it desolate, that no man may pass through it. If I did that, though these men were in it, as I live, saith the Lord Jehovah, they should deliver neither sons or daughters. That's where he adds the sons and daughters. And they should only be delivered, but the land should be desolate for the beast to run over that. Bring the sword. He includes the sons and the daughters. So he opened it up with a second reference to these men, but then the last two, they're included because they're important to what we're looking at. But what he says in verse 21, Jehovah, how much more will I send my four sore judgments upon Jerusalem? He doesn't put them in order as he has just said them, but he includes them. Sword, famine, evil beast, pestilence, to cut off from it man and beast. Yet, behold, there shall be left a remnant that shall be carried forth. What are they comprised of? Both sons and daughters. Behold, they shall come forth unto you, and ye shall see their way and their doings, and ye shall be comforted concerning the evil that I brought upon Jerusalem, even all that I brought upon it. I will save a remnant. And there'll be those sons and daughters that Noah and Job and Daniel cannot redeem on their own righteousness. God's people are going to have to be righteous for themselves, but they will have a remnant. And the fact that there'll be a remnant, sons and daughters, coming from all of this carnage. They shall comfort you when you see their way and their doings, and ye shall know that I have not done without cause all that I've done in it, saith the Lord Jehovah. I'm going to save a people, but it's time for punishment. Not annihilation, punishment. Now, people need to return to me. People have disobeyed me. So personal righteousness can be transmitted to others. And yet, what does Calvinism say? That we cannot be saved unless Christ's righteousness is imputed to us. It clothes us with his perfect life and his perfect righteousness in order for us to be saved. The Bible doesn't teach that. And it just keeps we have personal responsibility for ourselves. And as we saw in 1 John, he that doeth righteousness is righteous. That's God speaking. If you do righteousness, that's when you're righteous, not when you're imputed with Christ. And that's why would you come across a doctrine like that? Because see, we want comfort in knowing we can be saved, and we know we sin, and we cannot be saved, and therefore we need that comforting thing, and that's God. God has already saved you from your past sins, your present sins, your future sins. So why should I strive to do better every day if God's going to cover it with Christ's righteousness? And you know, the Bible doesn't put it that way. And God doesn't set forth the judgment upon them that say, well, we're going to escape it. There'll be a remnant comes from it with these judgments, and you'll be comforted. Sons and daughters are going to come forth there. All right? Anything on chapter 14? Chapter 15, we have a vine story. It's a vine parable. Just like in chapter 16, we're going to see a birth parable of Israel. But we're going to, in this short chapter 15, it's about the vine. And I ask this question. In the vine tree parable, give 3 segments of the story that applies to the worthlessness of Jerusalem. So, first of all, he introduces us to make a comparison. The word of Jehovah came unto me, saying, Son of man, what is the vine tree more than any tree? Another way of looking at it, the vine branch which is among the trees of the forest. When you talk about trees of the forest, you're talking about substantial lumber, aren't you? You're talking about substantial trees. The cedars of Lebanon. All of those things, is the big, strong trees that we see in the forest. But here we have a vine. We got some vines growing out there. One's getting ready to get in my office, but I'm going to take care of that in the morning. And but it's just growing everywhere, and it's just beautiful. You know, it's just flowing everywhere and growing. But when you compare that to the trees of the forest, that's what we're asked to do. And the point is, it's worthless. In this story, what's it worth for? What's it good for? It is good for something. He mentions it over and over again. Fine. We could burn it. It's good for fuel. But it's worthless for helping man. And well, fire can help man, but that's the point. It's going to be good for fire. And all that's going to be worth anything will be for fire, which I'm going to bring upon Jerusalem because they've left me. He's worthless for helping anybody. It's destroying people. But he uses the idea of the fire, that it's good for fuel. But when the fuel is gone, what good is it? So here's that first segment that we're looking at, is that notice the wood and its uses outshine the vine. Shall wood be taken thereof to make any work of a vine? You make a baby bed out of vine branches? Or a piece of furniture? Or will man take a pin of it to hang any vessel thereon? And when you go by and you see those little vines, would you like to hang your purse on that? It's not, the only thing I've seen out there was a gecko, or whatever you want to call it. They love to run around those vines, and it's holding them up. But it's not going to be of any substantial work. You couldn't even make a peg out of that. That's his point. It's worthless. Behold, it's cast in the fire for fuel. The fire hath devoured both the ends of it, and the midst of it is burnt. Is it profitable for any work? Behold, when it was whole, it was meat for no work. How much less, when the fire hath devoured it, and is burned, shall it be meat for any work? It burns. Well, I can use that for campfire, but the point is, it's worthless. It's not going to help you, Jerusalem. In fact, it's going to destroy you. And so there's a sense of comparing that with the woodworking that would take place. And then the third segment is coming upon you. Therefore, verse 6, thus saith the Lord, as the vine tree among the trees of the forest, which I have given to the fire for fuel. See, it's worth that, given for the fire for the fuel. But now it's going to be used to destroy. I will give the inhabitants of Jerusalem. They're going to receive the benefits and the destruction of that fire. I will set my face against them. I shall go forth from the fire, but the fire shall devour them. And they shall know that I am Jehovah. When I set my face against them, I will make the land desolate, because they've committed a trespass, saith the Lord Jehovah. Did Nebuchadnezzar burn the city of Jerusalem? He did. And fire destroyed them. So it could be used for fuel, and it produces fire, but that's not any good thing for the benefit of the people, is it? It could get a fire going, but then that fire is coming upon Jerusalem. And so, Son of Man, what is the vine tree more than wood? It's not, because it's good for the fuel of fire, and I'm bringing that upon the judgment of God's people. Very short chapter dealing with that one parable. Now, chapter 16 is the longest chapter. We're 60 verses, and I know we're not going to get through that, but let's see if we can get started in a time that we have. As we look at these first few verses, and you might want to look at this and say, well, this really happened? How can you be talking like this, in terms like that? It's a parable. It is a story that has meaning, and he applies that. But one of the things he states in this chapter is that we ask this question: what way were the Canaanites Israel's mother and father? Because he makes that statement about who they were. Look at verse 3. Talking about the birth and nativity, he says, "Thy birth and thy nativity is of the land of the Canaanite. The Amorite was thy father, and thy mother was the Hittite." They came out of the land of Canaan, and therefore God's people are going to be coming from there. We're going to see the story applied, their nativity, and here is a girl baby left to die in the wilderness. Nobody wanted you, Israel. Nobody wanted you as a people. And it's a female, and it's a baby. And that's why you got to think parable. This is not giving a historical record of what happened, but out of that land of captivity, Amorite and the Hittite, all part of the land of Canaan, father and mother, this is what they think of you. They gave you birth, and they left you to die. They didn't care about the Jew. It would be the Jewish people. And notice the scene as for thy nativity in the day, verse 4, when I was born, thy navel was not cut, neither wast thou washed. Mom and Dad didn't care about you. In water to cleanse thee. Thou wast not salted at all, nor swaddled at all. Your parents left you. Canaanites don't like you. No eye pitied thee. To do any of these things unto thee, to have compassion upon thee. We do that to our babies. We would swallow them. We would care for them. But thou wast cast out in the open field, for that thy person was abhorred in the day that thou wast born. So in your very beginning, you were put out to pasture. You weren't worth anything. He's painting their picture because he comes along, doesn't he? Okay. He comes along, and what we'll pick up, and we'll pick it up Sunday morning. We change our quarter, so we'll pick up right here. She becomes a teenager and a woman and a queen. He going through this picture, and it's painting a picture. I've done so much for you. And how have you returned that I cared for you in the wilderness when nobody wanted to watch you up? I did. God's painting that picture of ingratitude and unfaithfulness, and they deserve the judgment. But when you get to the end of chapter 16, read it and see if there's not hope. He paints the picture of reality and how he looks at it. And I think it's a wonderful story, a wonderful parable to take forth that. So there'll be something to think about, and Sunday morning we'll get into the details of that. Any questions or comments you'd like to add? Okay, thank you for being here.